Welcome to the Normal series of interviews for International Women's Day 2022. Today we meet Sam, our operations coordinator, and Kellie, who's the senior agile coach. Both women come filled with stories and experiences to share.
Okay, amazing. So I will start with you, Kellie. Very briefly, can you tell me about your past, where you were born, where you grew up, your family, your culture?
Wow, that's going back a long way, Ollie.
Briefly.
So I was actually born in outback New South Wales, and my parents ended up in central west New South Wales, to cut a long story short. So I was basically bred in a little tiny town called Canowindra, which is about an hour and a half from Bathurst, if you know that. It was only a town of 2,000 people. It didn't have taxis. It didn't have public transport. My dad was a farmer, and then he started cutting stock, and my mum was a nurse, and she also became a manager for a drug and alcohol halfway house for men. So I grew up in that, and she was also area manager for St Vincent de Paul at one stage as well. So very sort of country Australian culture. I have two elder brothers. One is a half brother, he's 20 years older than me, and one is full brother, and he's 19 months older than me. So I was my dad's first baby girl and was kind of treated like a bit of a princess, even though I was brought up on a farm.
But you are a princess. Have a crown.
Sometimes. Sometimes. So that's basically my little upbringing. I left for Sydney when I was 18, 3 weeks after my 18th birthday. I moved to Sydney and I started college for about a year. I worked around a lot around Sydney, fended for myself, learnt very quickly how a country girl fits into a city setting, and was scared most of the time, but got through it. And then I met my husband when I was 20 in Sydney. He was in the army and he came from Melbourne. So he moved back down to Melbourne for family reasons, and I followed him 3 months later, much to my mum's disappointment at that stage, because she wanted to come and visit Sydney a lot. So yeah, and that's basically where I started off. Small country town.
And for the listener, Kellie, you're an senior agile coach with NOMAS.
I am. I've become a senior agile coach with NOMAS, and I have the privilege of saying that I love my job.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Kellie. Sam, same question to you. Maybe we could just start out with what you do at NOMAS, and then, if you can tell me briefly about your past, your culture, where you grew up, your family.
Cool. Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the operations coordinator here at NOMAS. I grew up in Sydney until I was 7, and then I spent 8 years living in San Francisco before coming back and getting dumped in a boarding school. From there, I guess in terms of my career, I spent I worked a lot of jobs when I was a kid. I was that kid who always had about like 3 or 4 part-time jobs on the go. Went to uni to study international studies and marine science, which I took 6 years to finish and never really did anything with. But I spent quite a bit of that time working in hospitality, working my way up through the ranks there, eventually being the general manager of a small run bar at 23. From there, I moved into back of house hospice, so systems and admin management, before taking a year and a half off due to some health issues and ending up here. But very glad to have made the transition into tech. In terms of culture, I'm half Maltese, which has been pretty fun. I don't know, what the heck am I trying to say? In terms of culture, I'm half Maltese, so grandparents migrated over in the 60s. And I've been really connecting with that side of my family a lot more in recent years.
Thank you so much, Sam. What an interesting background for both of you. Kellie, who were some of your early female influences in terms of people you look up to or learn from? It can be real people or fictional people.
Oh, early influences, my mum, of course, I think, female parent, same-sex parent, I guess. She was always very strong, really forthright, and used to be very involved in the community and stuff as well. So I always was on her tail, and I think I used to annoy her a lot because I would never even let her like out of my sight a lot, because I just found her completely and utterly fascinating how she would interact with people. So really cool, strong woman, and the life of the party as well, which she could talk to anybody and be with anybody and come to their level as well, which was really awesome to witness. Another one of my really early influences was I called her Auntie Dawn, although she wasn't an auntie. She, you know, in the country, if you have a close friend, you tend to just, and they're really close family, as a sign of respect, you call them auntie. So my Auntie Dawn was quite, I always remember her being quite older, like an older lady, but she used to direct our local community theatre called Billy Can, and the way she used to command those people on the stage. She actually was a life member of Lions as well, and she's an IM. Just used to do an amazing amount of work within the community, and I used to always idolize how she would work with people and understand people and get them to do her things her way, which was pretty interesting, but also making sure that they were always doing something they enjoyed as well. And I loved watching that growing up as well. Later on in my career, it was more mentors, but early on, it was definitely my mum.
Thank you so much, Kellie. Sam, same question to you. Who were some of your early female influences in terms of people that you learned from or look up to, fictional or real people?
Yeah, I'm also going to say my mum. My mum has never been like a super traditional mum. I guess, you know, she is a stay-at-home mum. But when we moved to San Francisco, we were all put on a visa that basically meant that she couldn't work. And my mum is someone that she always needs to be doing something. And this woman is like 5'2". We all joined a karate studio, and my mum joined up as well. And she ended up becoming an instructor. And then because she couldn't work a job, convinced my dad to invest money in the karate studio, and then she volunteered to basically like work or like volunteer as an instructor at the karate studio. And this woman's like, yeah, tiny 5'2", like taking down these like 6 foot something men. You know, and she was, you know, it was very, you know, she did like cook us home dinners and do the whole mum thing, but she was always on the go and like always volunteering and always getting out and always doing things. And I think something in that really imprinted on me. Yeah. And then also my nana, like my mum's mum in her own way was also that way too. She was a lot more traditional, like Maltese society is very like, you know, you've got your husband and your wife, and the wife stays home and cooks dinner and all the rest of it. But little things like I found out in my teens that when my mum was a teenager, my grandfather went, no, she doesn't need to learn how to drive. She's never going to need a car. Her husband will drive her around. And my nana went, well, that's not happening, and like helped my mum save up for a car and like put money aside and made sure my mum got driving lessons. So I think, you know, yeah, I take a lot of inspiration from those women who are constantly questioning their edges.
Yeah, I find that as well, Sam. Yeah, my mum would always, she managed a pub when she was 30 and didn't have kids until she was later, like she was supposed to be on the shelf. And she was like, no, I'm not doing that. So, you know, she would always cook and be that mum and be there all the time for us, but she would also like be, I'm a person too, and really show that individuality, which was, then you didn't have a choice, right? Then you didn't have a choice.
Oh, exactly. Like we get this stereotype of these like women busting around the kitchen with food and blah, blah, blah. Like that was my grandma to a T. Like that was my nonna. She always had a pantry full of treats and this and that, but you always knew in her little way, she was always doing what she wanted. Like she had that drive. She'd find it and make it happen. Yeah.
Sound like amazing women, indeed. Moving on to the next question. Kellie, what were your thoughts about work when you were younger? Did you know what you wanted to be or what you wanted to do?
The short answer is no. I remember thinking when I was 17, what the hell am I going to do? Like, I don't really have an interest in anything in particular. My mum made me babysit. She made me sweep the hairdresser's floor. She to get a work experience. And when I left school, I was really kind of, well, what do I do? So my mum said, okay, you're going to go to college. So I started a hospitality and tourism management diploma. And I didn't like it that much. I didn't like being on my feet for that long. I didn't like having to deal with unruly customers. I didn't like any of that. But I was doing something, and that was the most important thing. I knew I had an interest in psychology. I knew I had an interest in people and the way they worked, but I had no interest in going to uni at that stage because that also seemed like way too much hard work for me. So I really didn't have the vision of what I wanted to do, and I guess that led right through to my 30s. When I first moved down to Melbourne, my transition into office life was, I remember walking around pushing a trolley, doing some temp work at the convention centre here. And I remember thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I've had enough. I'd been through working with Star City and the casino that was there and the showrooms and all that sort of stuff. It was great. And then I just went, I can't walk on my feet anymore. They're sad and sore. So I went and applied for a customer service role with general insurance with NAB, and they trained me up. And next thing I know, I was behind a desk, and I was like, well, this is all right. This is cool. But that was like my early 20s as well. That was, oh, this earns me more money and I don't have to stand up as much. So that's what I really liked. And I found that I got on well with all the customers, although I detested having to be on a headset with an umbilical cord, as they call it, as we call it in call centers. And that was like, oh. And so each position led me to the next one. What do I want to do next? I think my mum and my dad, for that matter, always instilled in me this weird ambition that, it doesn't matter where you are, you can always be somewhere better. So I would always work towards the next thing, and eventually worked my way into IT and then into Agile. So, but early on, no idea, and was so petrified of it.
Same. I had no idea at all. I mean, like when I was really little and I was living in the US, I wanted to be president of the United States, which is clearly like not an option for me, given the fact that I'm an Australian citizen. But I mean, like that was really young. As for what I wanted to do when I came out of high school, not a clue. I mean, I think the degree I signed up for really says it all. I did I did a Bachelor of Liberal Arts and Science, which basically meant I could do any of the arts and any of the science. And it was just like a hodgepodge of a degree thrown together. Yeah, what the heck was I going to do with international studies and marine science? But same thing, I feel like I almost fell into hospitality. I was offered a management role when I was 19. Not that impressive, just as a supervisor, and then a couple months later as an office manager. And I kind of went, oh, this could be my big break. And it really wasn't. But it pulled me into hospitality. And I did fall in love with I fell in love with having a sense of responsibility at a young age, which was probably not the best considering my burnout at age 26. But yeah, I just kind of just kept following my nose, and things kept opening up, and I just keep taking the next opportunity in front of me. And You know, like I worked hard for each opportunity, but yeah, there was never a clear, like, oh, maybe there was. I guess, like, just trying to think back. I remember I did have someone once tell me that women could never run nightclubs. And so there was a part of me that always wanted to prove that wrong. But, you know, doing anything out of spite, I wouldn't call that knowing what I wanted to do. I wouldn't call, drive by spite entirely responsible. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, very much. Has that impacted? So you did that out of spite because you wanted to prove, of course I can do that as a woman. Does that still impact you, that sort of thought, in terms of what you do now, or?
No, because it doesn't matter what they like, what that person or anyone else thinks. It's up to me what I want to do and how I feel about it. I think having that revelation means a lot.
Certainly. Thank you so much. Kellie, over to you. Only if you wish, remember, like, you don't have to answer all these questions. We can always come back to them. But if you want to share anything about, it could be a health journey, if you have had any. It could be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever it's relevant, and whatever you wish to share.
Oh, wow. I've had a few of those journeys. I've had a spiritual journey, an emotional journey. I think Sam was there when I actually shared with my team for the first time a couple of days ago that I have PTSD from an incident when I was, assaulted quite badly. And I think you were there too, Ollie. And that came into my world. And I've also been through burnout as well. I think the PTSD and the burnout sort of collided at once, and it made me go, whoa, the world's come at me and I can't handle it. Because you've got to be strong. I'm going to get a little bit emotional here because I always do. Especially where I was. Because I was a mother of 3 children at that stage, and I was a breadwinner, and I had to do everything. And there was a lot of family dynamics that were in there as well. And when I got to the space where I had to accept that I had to rest, it was really confronting for me, really confronting. And I remember walking in my company at the time, which I must say in this instance was absolutely fantastic. They were amazing. I actually, to be honest, I tried to take my own life, and I rang the next day and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore, to my beautiful mentor at that point. And she said, where are you? I said, I'm in a black hole and I can't get out of it. And I think everybody's going to be better off without me now. And she said, well, that is not the case, and you are taking time off. So she gave me that time, and it was an amazing time. And I remember walking in to see the psychologist, because they set you up for psychologists, and just getting my body to get out of a car, to get onto a train, to get in there. And I was a shaking, slithering mess. My body was absolutely failing me. And I was like, what is this? I don't understand. I'm a strong woman. I have 3 children. I have a marriage. I have a great career. Why is my body failing me? So with a lot of help that I managed to ask for, and a lot of time and perseverance, I learned that the world wasn't about everybody around me and what I did for them. It was about me and how I needed to look after myself to be there for them. So that was an emotional, as you can see, an emotional journey, but one that I needed to go on. So I learned what was good for me in the world, and what was good for me in the world was actually good for my family as well. And I've come out of it such a strong, I find myself 10 times stronger than I was before, and able to give back through my stories, through my experience, through just being me. so much to other people. So there is my there is my journey in a nutshell. There are some other ones that I went through, but that's probably the most significant, that I sort of had to go through that tunnel and come out the other side and find myself again.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing, Kelly. It's hard not to get emotional right now, because it's yeah, what a tough situation you've been in, and I'm so happy to see that you are where you're at now. And even though they suck, these kind of journeys, sometimes they, yeah, as you say, they make you even stronger, and maybe able to enjoy life even more on the other side.
They force you to learn lessons you wouldn't otherwise learn. And I'm so grateful for that experience now.
Yeah, maybe become a deeper person as well by going through those things. Wow. Sam, same question to you, only if you wish to share something. You don't have to, but yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, Kellie. Fucking hell.
It's hard to just continue this conversation after what you just told us, Kelly.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just so appreciative of being getting to know you, Kelly. I feel like I'm just getting to know you now, but I'll shut up now. So your time is yours now, Sam.
Yeah, Kellie, like, Jesus. I think I really relate to what you said about that thing of why is my body failing me? Like, that was very much my experience too. You know, like when I was, for those who don't know what endometriosis is, anyone listening in, endometriosis is basically where something that is similar to the lining of your uterus grows outside of your uterus. And you can have, there's 4 levels of endometriosis, but you can have level 1, the lowest level, and have pain that is 10 out of 10, basically just because of where it grows. Or you can have stage 4 endometriosis and have no pain because it's grown in a pain in an area with no pain. Sorry, with no, it's grown in an area that doesn't cause pain. I developed endometriosis about the time I was 20 or 21 and didn't know what the heck it was. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 24, which is short. The average time to diagnosis is 7 years. But for me, I basically just ignored it. And as women, we're often told to deal with the pain and truck on. And so I was working, you know, especially when I was 21, I was trying to do my uni degree part-time and also work a full-time job at a manager at a little bar in the CBD, which I probably shouldn't name any of them. And that basically my grandma also died at the same time. And I spiraled, like it really sent me off the cliff into, I was doing anything I could to like kind of numb the pain and push on. And eventually I realized that my body was hitting a cliff, even though I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I quit that job and went back to uni full time, which was the best decision I made ever. Managed to graduate uni and told myself I would never go back into hospitality, but somehow got offered a job that I couldn't turn down, because I had that voice in the back of my head saying, oh, a woman could never be a general manager, or like a woman could never run a bar. And I was like, fuck you. I got offered the role at the little rum bar I was running, and I just had to take it, which I knew going in. And I found the emails the other day where I had emailed the group manager and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know I have these health issues, blah, blah, blah. So I knew going in that like there was something not quite right with my body, that, you know, it hadn't yet been diagnosed. And I was, and that role basically like wrecked me. I don't even know how to describe it. I was doing like 60, 70-hour weeks. Like by that point, I was having pain, not just on my cycle, but 3 out of 4 weeks of my cycle. So I was constantly on painkillers, constantly like just doing whatever I could to numb it, while also working a role that I really shouldn't have been in. You know, I didn't have the management training. I was too young, like, so that role really wrecked me. And I also felt that I hit a point, you know, I left that role because I was like, I knew that my body couldn't handle it. And as a result, I was not performing to the standards that I wanted to as well. And like, I couldn't take care of my staff because I couldn't take care of myself. So I left that role, moved into an office-based role, which was a great fucking decision, at another hospitality group. And then was finally diagnosed and had surgery. But yeah, no, like, nothing ended for me. Even after I was diagnosed and had surgery, there's not much information on this stuff. There's not much information on endo or proper care or anything. So I still worked through it for another 2 years before I just hit a peak. And had to quit another job because I just couldn't handle it. And it took me, by the time, like, I won't go into all the details, but by the time I finally found a doctor that knew how to treat me, not the endo, by this point it was full-blown burnout. Like my immune system, my cardiovascular system, like everything had just started to like fall over like dominoes. By the time I found a doctor to treat me, I was told it was 2 more years to full recovery. So it's, there's so much that falls into this stuff. It's hard to just slap a label on it and go, this is the problem, this is how we fix it. And especially when it comes to women's health. Like,
I had a similar thing happen to me, and this is where, for the interest of whoever's listening to this, gosh, don't forget your pap smears. Like, I hated them. I didn't go and do it at all until one day my girlfriend said to me, you're looking a bit weird. I'm going to book you in to the doctors across the road. So she booked me in and she dragged me in, and I made her come with me, and I had my pap smear, and I thought, nothing touches me, I'm fine. Until the doctor called me, and 2 days later, and said, you have CN3, you are 6 months off cervical cancer. And I went, oh, that's not great. So I proceeded to it was fixable. It was absolutely fixable. But there was that absolute shit. I've let myself go for, my career. I've neglected myself. I haven't done this. I've just put a big, ugly wall there. And that big, ugly wall came really close to really bad consequences. So I proceeded to have, thanks to the wonders of medical science, I did manage to have laser surgery and sorted it out as well. But again, the way you neglect women's health, the way you neglect yourself, it can be really detrimental. So yeah, there's a message. Do not forget your pap smears. It's only 3 minutes.
Thanks for sharing, Kellie, and very glad that you're okay now. I think it's also interesting how the body and mind, like it's tied together, right? It's not two separate entities.
It's a good point, Ollie. Like Sam said, you're especially for women, I think your body and your mind are absolutely one all the time. And I think women need to get to a point where we actually accept that.
Yeah, and also, yes, accepting that your body's and your mind are one, like that is so crucial. Like the amount of control that your mind has over your body is insane, as I've learned. But also when a doctor tells you, oh, you might just be stressed, it might just be a little bit of depression, it might just be anxiety, question it. Really sit down and question it, because there's often much more to the issue. Like, sure, maybe it is just a bit of anxiety, it is just a bit of stress, but there's often so much more behind it. So really get down to the root cause.
Well, ovarian cancer, it hardly has any symptoms, right? And it's one of the biggest killers of women, and it doesn't get detected. And one of the biggest symptoms of that is fatigue. And we just think, oh, we're just busy and we have to do this stuff. Like, got to really learn to take care of ourselves a little bit more, because we have moving bits a little bit more working than the guys do, right?
And nothing is more important than our health, general health, to also be able to care at any work or anything be. But first of all, if we don't take care of that, then it's not good. Wow, very powerful. It's hard just to continue this without, I have 1,000 questions I want to ask you, but what advice would you give to your younger self? A bit of a different topic, Kellie.
Oh wow, it's going to be okay. you can do this. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, if I had heard that. Yeah. And just follow your nose. It's okay. Follow your nose. Everything will work out. Growing up, I was being in such a small town. Everybody knew your business. Everybody knew your family. If your family did something wrong, then you would be tarred with that. If you were too big and too bright and too much of anything, the tall poppy syndrome would certainly come in pretty quickly. So I, for a lot of my teenage years, for a lot of my younger years, thought something was desperately wrong with me. Okay, so sometimes I still think so something's desperately wrong with me, but no, I don't, not really. But I used to think, I was the absolute oddball out. So I used to think, how am I going to survive this life thing? This is crazy, especially in my teenage years. I'm going to have to leave this little bubble. What am I going to do? How am I going to survive this? And I never knew how, I never knew why, I never knew what I was going to do next, really, except when I moved to Melbourne, I knew what I was doing then. And it's going to be okay, because I used to have, and still do to an extent, a lot of anxiety about that, about not being in, a nice little safety bubble, although I hated the safety bubble. So yeah, it's going to be okay. Just relax. It's going to be okay, I would say to her. And then I'd slap her and say, wake up, you're being ridiculous.
Totally. This links in with a conversation I was having with Eddie last week. It is not advice Edwina has given me. I need to say that out loud. This is just my misinterpretation of our conversation, very much so. But I would tell my younger self, don't be afraid to be a motherfucking cowboy every now and then. And just that realization that honestly, so many people are making it up as they go. You don't need to have the answers. Just get out there and cowboy it every now and then. Just make it up. Just don't be afraid to just do it, or have the confidence to bluff your way through things, because you can. And we really don't realize that enough. Yeah, I was always so scared or tiptoeing around people, or but when you have that realization that nobody's got their shit together, so why the heck do I also need to just roll with it? And yeah, if something's consuming you, if something feels all consuming and so stressful, is this something that's going to affect your life 6 months from now? If the answer is no, it's not worth your energy.
I tell my 16 and 14-year-old daughters now, hey, fake it till you make it. Just fake it. If you're not unsure, just fake it. And also, Sam, that one as well, is this going to affect your life 6 months from now? Are you going to actually know that person's name? Especially with teenage girls right now, yeah, because their world is their friends, their world is their place, and if you don't get it right, then your whole world's going to fall apart. I often say to them, you won't remember their names. You'll try, and your mother will occasionally say, remember the person that you went to school with? And you'll go, yeah, and you don't. Whatever's affecting you now, it's not going to be there in a few years, I promise. And that's what I love to tell my girls. But yeah, I don't say, don't be afraid to be a fucking cowboy every now and again, because, although I think I might tonight. I'll use it.
Yeah. I think that also ties into the whole, some women or people suffer from that thing of having to be perfect, right? Perfectionism, and well, no one is perfect, as you guys say. And yeah, you can be, and you're only going to suffer if you adhere to that. Bringing your whole self, authentic self to work, it's such an important concept that we talk a lot about in Us. And too often we have to hide that part of ourselves, or at least a lot of people experience that, to sort of fit into whatever environment we're in. Have you ever felt that way, Kellie?
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I worked for one of Australia's biggest banks. I better not say which one, for 17 years. I was never allowed to really bring my full self to work. I had to have my mask on. I had to have the corporate outfit on. I had to have, or at least that's the pressure I put on myself. Yeah. But if I didn't, I would be perceived as a different thing. So, and I was told numerous times, you're too loud. You need to calm down. You're too much. You don't want to scare people. You probably want to sort of back off a little bit. You need to be quiet. All the time, and it used to frustrate me. And my husband actually just said to me the other day, isn't this strange? I came out of the call with my team that I've got at the moment, that I'm consulting with at the moment, and I was just all myself, and I was laughing, and I came out of it and I said, gee, that was fun. That was so much fun. I really love that. I'm really living my purpose. It's great. And he said, he's a counsellor, he said, let's do a reflection. And I looked at him as if to say, are you doing that thing to me again? And he said, I remember you 4 years ago, and you would come home in tears going, why won't they let me be myself? I can do this if I'm just myself. If I'm just myself, just let me be that. So coming into Nomos, where little over 12 months ago, I thought that my world was ending because I had to leave this massive organization and I had to be brave again, and I didn't have the safety, and all the family security had gone down the toilet, and I was really working myself up. Part of Nomos is that I am my full self, and everybody accepts me for that, which is strange but fantastic at the same time.
Thank you, Kellie. And that's also what you said earlier, right? That when you were younger, then you thought you were too colorful to fit in, and all these things. Basically, just difficult to be yourself.
Yeah.
Happy that you can be yourself now. We all benefit from that and enjoy that. So thank you.
I do say to my team now, I'm sorry when I was in there in person a week ago, and I'm like, I haven't got a mute button. Like, I'm just warning you, I haven't got a mute button right now. I didn't know.
Oh, that's hilarious. Sam, and any aspects where you feel like you have had to hide yourself, your true self? Yeah, and if yes, do you care to elaborate?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess, look, like being a young female manager in hospitality, and especially like, God, I say like back in those days, it really wasn't that bloody long ago. Like I'm 29 now, there was when I was 22, 23. You had to be, or no, not you had to be, at least the impression that I got back then was to be a female manager in hospitality, you had to be a hard ass. And I'm not, like, I'm soft and I'm squishy and I'm cuddly and I like video games and dorky books, and like that's not me. But like I got very good at putting that shell on and like really like pushing down that side of me. Like, when I worked in hospitality, I rarely read, I rarely like played video games. I think, like my old roommate can tell some stories of me like being my own self at home and like, coming out in like little ways here and there. But yeah, for the whole part, like when it came to work, I was, black leather jeans, leather jacket, kind of boots on kind of manager. And it probably came out in my management style as well, which I have a lot of critiques on. But yeah, like I love being at Nomos because I can be like my little happy, squishy, dorky self, and it's great, and I love it.
We love that too. Thank you. Kellie, do you have any stories about your life in the workplace or outside of work where you felt that you were judged or treated in a negative manner because of your gender?
Yes.
Oh
my God, which one do you want? I was thinking about this just the other day, and I've had a number of experiences, because being in IT in a big company, I was the only female, or one of very few. And probably the worst negative experience I've had was at the expense of 2 other females, where I remember one of the girls saying to me when I first joined the team, I really like her because she's one of the boys. And I thought to myself, I don't like being one of the boys. I really don't like being one of the boys, although I'd worked in IT and I was like, oh yeah, I'm one of the boys. And then actually saying it out loud, I went, I like that. I'm not sure if you've noticed. I'm not one of the boys. And she also said, and she works like a man. I'm like, I work like a woman. Like, because I can't be anything else but a woman. I'm sorry about that. Her and a friend of hers, there was only maybe 3 of us females in the department, decided to just start a really weird campaign of dislike against me. But it was one of those campaigns where you couldn't put your finger on, and it was bullying, and it was real bullying. They'd pick up on everything that you do, or they'd throw things out of proportion, or you would be, one of the only females in an all-male meeting, and they'd really hone in on you and ask you questions that were completely irrelevant to your job or position or something else, and expect you to know the answers. So it was a real campaign to see if they could, show me up for being what they thought I was, which I never really worked out what that was. So that was probably one of the most negative experiences I had, and total shock as well, because they were female. They were higher in the hierarchy than me. So I was really, I don't understand, like, why would you be that way towards me? And the guys didn't back me up. As well. Another major negative experience that I remember is being on the phone to one of the release managers when I was an enterprise release planner, and we had a bit of an argument about some scheduling stuff. And I was telling him how it was. This is this way because of that, and I was using an assertive tone, and I put down to this day it was an assertive tone. And he said, "You're being aggressive with me." And I'm not being aggressive. I'm using my assertive tone because you keep on speaking over me. So I'm not being that way. And he reported me to the manager, and we were pulled into the room. And luckily I had learnt by that stage to write everything down and make sure that I kept facts about everything, because you just had to do that. So I walked in and with my big sheet of paper and said, in this incident, when you did this, it made me feel. And this guy had no legs to stand on. He was, and I said, I'm not sure why you perceived me as being aggressive when I was being assertive, because I saw you in a conversation with X person the other day, and that was a fight. And it was nearly came to fisticuffs. But I was just asserting my point of view and you didn't like it. So consequently, he was performance managed and I wasn't. But it was those 2 incidences really showed me, the people who you think will support you will probably push you down. And the men who I've in my encountering who have, there's not a lot of them left out there now. But the men who are still a little bit on the masochistic side, it's a great day and age where they're starting to get taken out because the women are learning how to do it.
Thank you, Kellie. And yes, hopefully the future will be much brighter. Sam, same question to you. Have you had, I assume you have, would you care to talk about any experience that you've had where you felt you were treated differently because of your gender?
As Kellie so aptly put it, yes. Jeebus. Where do we start? Cool. Yeah. I guess, look, and I've already mentioned it, but the one that really stood out was being told that, yeah, women can't run a nightclub, women can't run a bar. Sure, buddy, we just don't run it the same way as you do. And I mean that in terms of like, when you need to physically remove someone from a bar, I am not going to walk up to a 6-foot man and threaten him and tell him to get out. Like, I'm 5'5", I'm teeny. Like, I'll do it in a very different way than a guy will, and that's just how it is. But yeah, sorry. I think I had a very similar experience to Kellie, and that, yeah, sometimes it's the people that you think will pull you up are the ones that push you down. I had when I was running, keep going to name it, and I shall not name it. When I was running the rum bar in Surrey Hills, we had a full female management team. So it was me, head chef, bar manager, floor manager. And you would think, amazing, all female run rum bar / restaurant in Surrey Hills. You'd be like, absolutely incredible. This place must run seamlessly. And it wasn't, because, you know, I think it came from the fact that in hospitality at that time, it kind of felt like there could only be one, you know, stereotypical strong woman per venue. And when you put 4 of us in one spot, it was like it was hell. You know, one of us eventually left. She had some other stuff going on, but the 3 remaining, you know, since we've left the venue, we are now actually all really tight friends, because we had that time apart, we came together and we all just kind of went, what the heck was that? What did we do? Like, we've all apologized to each other, we've all like really spoken it out, and we, you know, like, at the time it was really, really damaging, but I feel like what I've taken from the experience has been almost uplifting in, you know, the friendships and the bonds and the realization, like the really big, heavy realizations that we've all kind of come to as well. But yeah, I don't know, I could list a whole bundle, but we don't have hours.
Was it the environment, do you think, Sam, that kind of was part of like creating that behavior?
Yeah, definitely. It was mostly between me and the head chef. Me as the general manager and her as the head chef. We kind of, even though I had full control over the venue, she had full control over the food. And so we were the 2 most senior women kind of coming to heads. And if something went wrong, we very much push back against each other. So it became less of us working together and more of a competition. You know, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to messages that chicken wings hadn't arrived. And it wouldn't be, okay, let's just sort out how to get some chicken wings. It would be, no, this is your fault, this is your fault, this is your fault. And it degrades, like it's degrading is not the word. It really like beats down your spirit. It sucks. Yeah, like, you know, by the end, we found a way to work together. We had like a grudging relationship. But yeah, it really was not a good environment to be in. And I think it, you know, I'm just trying to be very careful with my words. Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, this woman is now one of my closest friends. But yeah, not the greatest experience or environment.
It almost sounds as if, you know, 2 strong women were in that blame game for each other, and when you do that, and it's neither's fault, right? But yeah. I have something to prove here, and that overrides everything, right? I have something to prove, and we can be our own worst enemies sometimes with that. We really can.
You're 100% on it, Kellie. It was exactly that. Like, yeah. I have something to prove. I think neither of us felt fully qualified for that position, and we were both just trying to prove, like, this is my venue, I am the best, etc. Yeah,
and that's when, you know, we hurt each other, which is geez, then you didn't prove it, did you? You know, it's our own worst enemies. Another really negative one I had was when I was with a manager, and our teams worked really closely together. This is really like, oh my God, what do I do? And it was weird. I used to go down and talk to the manager and blah, blah, blah. We went out for drinks once. I was all good. And he was sort of getting a bit close. And I was like, you know, I'm married. He's married. Like, I don't like this vibe. You know, we pick it up, right? We pick up that vibe. And I was like, oh, no, it's not me. It's fine. It's fine. And he said, I will walk you up to the station, because clearly I was not capable of walking myself to a clearly lit station that was 2 minutes away. And I was like, all right, you know, because I was being nice. I should not have been nice. And he walked up and he said, and we got to the things, and I'm trying to run through the stalls. I'm trying to get to that train. And he said, you know what? You could get me into a lot of trouble. And I went, far out. What do I do with this now? I'm like, what? I couldn't get you into any trouble, sweet cheeks, because that's not what, ew. And he was a manager, and I had to work with him every other day, right? And so it was horrible in that the next day I was like, what do I do? And I can't tell my husband, because my husband would go and decapitate him. So I was like, oh no, what do I do? And it was so hard, the working relationship, trying to go down there and do my job every other day after that used to make my skin crawl, because I'm like, is he looking at me? Am I wearing the right thing? And yuck. And I still try and avoid him to this day.
Kellie, that's horrible. Oh.
Ew, it was just ooky. It was just ooky, and put me in a really funny position. And I couldn't tell anybody else, because even my great manager of that time as well was good friends with him, and our teams worked so closely together that I just had to take a deep breath and try and avoid at all costs.
Oh, yeah, that sounds horrible. Moving on to the next question. I have 2 questions left. Do you have time for that? Yeah, good, all good. Lots of people have strong opinions about how women should behave. Have you ever felt that those opinions have affected you? And if yes, in which way?
I think my story beforehand is one of those ones, and maybe yours as well, Sam, is where empowered women should be strong, and they should be one of the boys, and they should be a certain way, act a certain way. And when you don't hit that, it's kind of, you get a negative response for that. And my previous story with these 2 women that came after me is a perfect example of that. And it's a real pity. It works against the whole point of what we're trying to do here. And then you become wary of women, of other women as well, instead of supportive. And I think that's the real shame in that sort of stuff sort of happening. I think I was telling a story the other day where I was facilitating a session for group 5 women. So really high managers, like we're talking GMs, execs, for a women's thing, and an IT women's thing. And the point was to actually bring up or expose how those women got to where they were. And so the younger women could say, okay, I can follow your path. That's your formula. That's your recipe. If I do this, this, and this, maybe I can get there too. I was never so disappointed walking out of that session, because the women didn't want to help. They just decided, no, this is how you need to act. You need to work hard. You need to, forget about having a family. Impossible for me at that stage, because I had 3 kids. Forget about having a family. You just need to work hard, make sure you get a mentor, make sure you get side on with a decent male executive, and then work really hard to get there. And I thought to myself, oh, surely there's got to be an easier way, because we can't not have babies. Like, I'm sure we can not have babies, but that will be a problem for the world population, and for ourselves as well. I found it really, really confusing. And I was really disappointed that they couldn't say, okay, I got myself a really good female mentor. I got myself a really good male mentor who was great, and I did this, this, and this. And instead they just shrugged their shoulders and said, work hard. That's what we did. It's about working hard. And I thought, can't be about working hard. So that empowerment, these were empowered women, and they just didn't want to give an inch, which is really, that was harsh.
Wow, yeah. Really shows that, you know, that's a path you want to go down, the different expectations to women, and this is just how you have to, you know, to do it if you want to have a career, which is mind-blowing. Sam, you touched upon it earlier, sort of in terms of opinions about how women should behave. They cannot be a general manager or be a manager of a bar. Are there any other things that you would like to share today where you felt like the thought of how women should behave have how they have impacted you in any way?
I mean, I don't know why this just popped into my mind, but the movie Legally Blonde. Brilliant. I was going to swear again. Sorry. Brilliant. Like, I mean, whatever your opinions on the goddamn movie, like, this woman goes in a pink suit, becomes a high profile lawyer. Like, okay, granted, there's a lot of other stereotypes and stuff that probably needs to get unpacked in that. We'll put that to the side. But yeah, like, I love that we're starting to move more towards that. That there is starting to be more acceptance. I think, you know, we've got a really long way to go still. But
yeah, we've still got some movement to make there, but I think we're all starting to understand that, you know, having it all doesn't mean we have to actually give up anything as well, and we just need to, we can have it all, just possibly not all at once, but you won't be sort of at a detriment because of that. I think that's starting to come through. And the ask of the guys, you know, come and help us. They haven't been told how to help yet. They want to, the good ones really want to, but they don't want to help. They don't know how. And I think that bringing the guys into the conversation is a super important piece as well. When my husband started looking after the kids, because that's made financial sense for our family at the time, he, and I'm talking, this is 8 years ago, he would drop my daughters off at school and be ignored by every single other woman there. And there were no dads. There were no other dads. He was all by himself. He didn't care though. He just kept on going. He would turn up to kitchen and cook with those kids. He would do all of the mum stuff. And slowly now I see it, it's really nice, because the few times I do pick up my kids, or I'm made to, I have to go and pick up the kids from school, and I sit outside the school and I watch. There's an equal amount of men and women there picking up their kids now. I can see the differences coming through, because we're asking, we're saying, please, you know, we can't do everything. We need the help. We'll help you, you help us. And it's that equality is starting to come through, which is super important.
Yeah, and I think what you like, similar in the same vein, but slightly different, like, you know, you're talking about almost like a sharing of gender roles, or like a different kind of gender norm. Like, when you take that image of like the stereotypical male boss, if we can break that down as well, like, you know, changing our concept of what is a good management style. Because I think, not to throw stereotypes out there, but women do tend to be a little bit softer with generally, and I'm not saying this is all women, because this is definitely not the case, but we tend to be a little bit more in touch with emotions. Like, I know that my management style, the one that I really manage with, is not the one I was taught to use. So an acceptance that they are equal, that a position of power and a position of authority doesn't need to be commanding and loud and forceful. A position of power can be gentler, and it can be softer, and that can be just as effective as someone who strides in with a loud voice and commanding posture. I think once we can start to change that perception, it's going to be much easier for women to get to the top.
Yeah, and for women to not feel like they have to do that, one of my beautiful managers was a lot like that. Like, she thought that she couldn't show emotion in the office, that she couldn't, and it would be a weakness. Like, the worst thing you could ever do in the office was cry, and I used to do it all the time, and I was like, oh my God, there goes my career. Because I was premenstrual or something to that effect, and somebody looked at me the wrong way or whatever. When you're in that space, you're like, oh, the world's just falling apart. And I would run, and I remember sort of when her husband passed away quite young, she walked into the office, and it was 3 weeks after he passed away, and she walked in, and she was strong, and she was there, and she walked past me, and I went, she's not there. And I went and grabbed her from a desk and walked her straight back out, and I said, you're not going to like it if you break down here, and you're about to break down, so go home, do it somewhere else, because you won't feel you won't feel that you can't feel that you can do it here. So out you go. And I walked her out so nobody would notice that she was an absolute and utter mess. She's one of the strongest women I know, but she always felt like she had to put across this certain persona all the time.
Yeah, and it's such a damaging persona to have to wear. And I don't know about you, Kellie, but having to wear that persona is definitely what led to a huge amount of my burnout.
Yeah,
the reason I ignored all the pain I was in, ignored all the things my body was telling me. And to add into that, one of the first things I was taught to be a manager, as when I started, I'm really not going to go into details on that one. When I started at one of the bars that I worked at, I was told by an older male manager to fire someone to assert my authority. And I did. And it sucked. And I spent that entire night, bawling my eyes out, because it sucked. And it did not have the effect that was intended. It was a horrible decision to make. It was a horrible position to be put in, to be told by my superior that, to be told by the person I report to, you must fire someone to assert your authority, otherwise you're not a good manager. That is, it's fucked up on so many levels.
So getting men more involved in conversations about gender equality and actively doing something, and not having to, again, be this persona, we can just be our authentic selves. That's good enough. Anything else do you think that we can do to create opportunities for the next generation of women?
This one cuts me. Anything else? Because I think on a daily basis, having teenage girls, what can I do to make sure you don't feel like you have to go through what I have? So I ask myself that question every day, and it's lots of little things, starting from tiny things. And I think one of the main things I do in my house, because that's where I have most control, one of the tiny things is my 8-year-old knows about my daughter's periods, when they have them, what's happening. He gets, cranky. Oh, you've left this. Do I have to pick up your undies? All that sort of stuff. And it's an open subject in my house. So it's not, that, ooh, that's scary. We had, when the girls don't want to go swimming, he'll go, oh, this is the 8-year-old. Oh, it's all right. She's just got a period. I understand. And it's just, a known fact. My husband, another little thing was my husband gave the sex talk to my then 9-year-old daughter, because she asked the question, and he gave the sex talk to her. And that broke down so much stigma, because she got it from her father. Like that, how powerful is that? I remember taking the phone call. I was at work and feeling very guilty about being at work when I should have, in the traditional roles, have given that talk. And he told me how he delivered it, and I was like, well, then you're doing it for all three, because that is amazing. I could never have come up with how you delivered the sex talk to our daughter. Like, do that again. And that's amazing. So I think little things along the way, calling out women when they're being, too harsh, but gently, accepting that, as Sam said, that being higher up doesn't mean that you have to be hard ass and tough and emotionless. Men can be that way too, and making it okay. I think the next step for us is that true equality, where it's okay for both of us, not just for the women as well. The beauty is that the women have led the way and said, hey, we stand up here too. We bring as much as you do, and then allowing, and in doing that, allowing the men to go, hey, I've got emotion too. I don't need to conform to the standards of masculinity as it was. And I think that's our next key.
Yeah, very powerful. Anything you want to add, Sam, to this before we round off?
I think Kellie is absolutely on the money with what she was saying about, if women can show that power and emotion and sensitivity and all that can go hand in hand, like why the heck can't the same thing be there for men? And once that barrier is broken, hopefully you can have a gentler, more accepting society. And also just talking about making it more acceptable to talk about health and squeamish things at work. Like, why is it that we don't talk about women's health problems? Or why is it that we're, even mental health? And I think, this applies to men as well. But let's break that stigma of not talking about your mental health, not addressing your emotions. If we can talk about these things more openly and honestly, then it's going to be so much easier for the next generation to come up, because you're not stifling anything. You're not pushing parts of yourself down. You don't have to put on a mask when you're at work. I think that, that benefits all of us.
Very much so. Thank you.